Well, hey there, Life Group and Huddle leaders. I'm so excited that you are jumping on board and looking to help disciple others in the church. This is the most important thing we do, right? Jesus calls us to make disciples who make disciples. This is the calling upon your life. And I know that many of you've just gone through your first discipleship leader training, and it's maybe a little bit overwhelming, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions. I wish I could have been there for it. I was at school, and it was a good day at school, but I know Andrew did a great job. And I want to just take a few minutes to explain a couple of nuances between some of the ways we talk about groups. And in doing that, hopefully help you know what you're getting yourself into a little bit more. And my thought is I'll shoot this video and then send it your way. And if you have some questions, if you want to talk some more, let's make plans for a phone call. I'm available after the Saturday night service. I can easily be available. And over the next week, we can talk more as well. But I want to talk first of all about the difference between a life group and a huddle, because these are some terms that you hear us use that might be a little confusing. What are we talking about life group? What are we talking about huddle? What about Bible study? What is the difference between all of these things? And so I want to just bring some clarity. First of all, huddles are really the goal, because huddles, we believe, that's actually where discipleship happens. But life groups are a great tool in moving us toward the discipleship that happens in huddles. Let me explain. So a life group is going to typically gather a larger group of people, 10-ish, 8 to 10, up to 20, 25, 30. You can have a really large life group, actually. A life group is going to be content driven, so there's going to be some sort of material your group is going through together. It's going to be multi-huddled. And so when I say multi-huddle, I mean a life group probably has multiple huddles within it. A life group is going to be larger, and it's going to be mixed gendered. It doesn't have to be mixed gendered. You can have a large women's life group. You can have a large guys life group. It doesn't necessarily have to be both genders, but oftentimes it is. Now, within a life group, you're going to have, hopefully, multiple huddles. And so a huddle is going to apply the content you're learning in a life group. This means a huddle can be a life group in and of itself. You can have four guys together or four gals together as a life group / huddle that are going through content together. And in that smaller gathering, you're actually working through applying things together. A huddle is going to be smaller, and best case scenario, a huddle is gender specific. The truth is, guys are going to share more about what's going on in their soul if there's just other dudes in the circle or together around a table. Same thing, gals are probably going to be a little bit more transparent if it's just other gals. And so these are some of the differences. So here's how it might work, right? I know of one life group. They meet on Sunday nights, and they have about, I think, 6 to 8 adults. They gather together as a life group. They go through some content together. They share a meal together, I think, or at least they have some snackage and whatnot. They have some kids that are running around having a good time. And I think the husband kind of guides a content conversation. Then, sometime in that, they break into huddles. And so there's just 2 huddles in this life group. There's a guy's huddle and a gal's huddle. And in that, they talk about the content a little bit more deeply. In that, they typically will ask the 3 questions. And so, what is your gospel input? How are you growing as a disciple? And how are you going as a disciple sent by Jesus? And they'll pray together in those gender-specific huddles. Let me give you another example. Wednesday nights, I have a large life group. I think we have 25 or 26 people that come to that group. And so we go through content. Actually, this last semester, we went through gospel-centered life. And in that, I'll take the first 20, 30 minutes of our time together, and I'll guide us through a large group conversation over the content. Typically, that involves almost everyone in the group reading a portion of our content for the night. And then I will ask some questions that get us talking. Oftentimes, because it's such a large group, I'll ask maybe one question that anyone can answer, and then I'll ask a question for them to discuss in their tables on their own. So usually 4 or 5 people per table. Those tables are made up of huddles. We'll go through that content, and then After we've gone through the content, then I will leave them to their tables, where each of those tables, actually 6 tables are set up that night. Those 6 tables, they will apply the content. They will have some questions provided where they can talk through this content at a personal level. In that, typically they get to a spot where they're saying, okay, well, what is your gospel input? Sometimes the gospel input is that content. Sometimes it's their Bible reading from this last week. How are you growing in Christ likeness? How are you going as one sent by Jesus? And that conversation and then prayer will happen in their huddle. So this is the interplay between the life group and the huddle. So this means for you, maybe you are thinking you want to lead a life group. And if that's you, great. This means you're probably going to be recruiting a lot of people. At least 6 to 10 people is a good start for a life group. And as you do that, maybe you're partnering with your spouse to, the guy is leading the life group, and then the guy and the gal are splitting up to lead the huddles of the guys and the gals. We have a couple of young adult groups that are going to start. It's going to be awesome. There's going to be such opportunity for different people to have some experience, even leading breakout conversations. Maybe not the most well-trained huddle leaders are going to begin leading huddles because you are leading your life group. Maybe you just want to lead a huddle. Maybe you just want to find 2 or 3 other gals and you want to gather together with them. That's really going to be a huddle. You're going to have a life group within your huddle. You'll probably go through the same gospel-centered life that we're going to go through. You'll talk through that at a deep level as you go through it, applying it from the start. And so I don't want you to be confused by life group and huddle. I don't want you to be intimidated by it either, right? They really do. They're interrelated. They work together. Big picture, life group's going to be a lot larger. Huddle is going to be smaller. A single huddle meeting is a life group and a huddle together. A life group can have multiple huddles. Let me know if you have some questions. And hopefully you've gotten your group, you're starting to get your logistics together. Andrew and I are both available to answer your questions and to walk you through this. I want you to know we're praying for you. We're so excited. And just final word, pastoring this church, I really do believe this is so much of what our future holds. Learning to not be a church that's about the gathering, which we'll continue to do. Not just about we gather for a big event, but rather it's a church full of people that are trained to disciple others, to answer the call of Jesus upon their life. Thanks for serving in this way.